Pushing past the limit, sipping on a tripping on hallucinogenics. Cigarette burn my finger 'cause I forgot I lit it. Bow, bow, bow. Welcome to Pat on the Back. Actually, it's not Pat on the Back this week. It is Pat on the Back, but it's not Pat on the Back this week. It is time for Idiot History. Now, this episode has been kind of a couple weeks in the making because I was supposed to release this episode last week and then I didn't feel like I was ready. I felt like this story deserved a little bit more attention. And so that reflection in my glasses is going to bother me, so I'm taking those off. And so now I can't read my notes. And so I put it off for a week, but now we are ready to do Idiot History. And today we are talking about the great Harald Hardrada. Now, Harald Hardrada is one of the kings of Norway, but what we actually, all that we know about him, everything that's told in stories, is told like from Iceland, like accountings, which is obviously not fucking Norway, and it's 200 years after he died. That's when all these like stories come from. So is how much of it is true? I who fucking knows, dude? Like, I mean, I'm sure a lot of it is true. I'm sure there's a decent amount that isn't, but we're gonna do the fucking story. You know what I mean? It's a cool. Honestly, it's a fucking really cool story. I didn't really know much about this guy before I started doing the research, and that's one of the reasons why I had to take the extra week, because I was like, this guy's fucking badass. But I really had to figure out like what was going to be included, what wasn't going to be included. I've got a plethora of notes here, more notes than I normally have. But like I said, some of this is absolutely true. Some of it's most likely made up, and some of it is just like, oh, this guy, there's a drunk guy at a campfire was like, oh, you know, it'd be fucking sick if this happened, like shit like that. So who is Harald Hardrada? He's originally, or I mean, I shouldn't say originally. His actual name is Harald Sigurdsson. I put my glass back on. I couldn't read the fucking notes. It was terrible. And he later became known as Harald Hardrada, and Hardrada translates to hard ruler. So he's Harald the Hard Ruler. Allegedly, this dude was fucking gigantic. Allegedly, some sources say he was 5 L's tall. Now I didn't know what an L was, so I did some more research, and that's around 7.5 feet tall. Is what they claim to him. And he also had blonde hair. He's a warrior, but he also writes poetry after battles, which is like, all right, he's Thor. He's the inspiration for Thor, I would assume. But really, once you dig really into the story, like, because he also would say quippy, witty things in or during battle, so you're like, oh, okay. So imagine if Aragorn, I always mess his name up, from The Lord of the Rings. Imagine if he fucked Deadpool and they had a Viking baby. That would be Harald Hardrada. He's the most ridiculous guy of all time. So just to kick us off here, otherwise this episode's going to drag. He fought in his first battle at the age of 15 years old. I don't want to say on behalf of, but like, I guess it was kind of for his half-brother, King Olaf. Not the snowman from Frozen, the actual guy, King Olaf, who I'm pretty sure went on to become like a saint of some kind. This story ain't about him. Fuck that guy. So why were they fighting? Olaf was king of Norway, okay? And he basically did not get along with a bunch of Norwegian nobles. They fucking hated him. It's partly because of taxes, partly because he was aggressively spreading Christianity. So they overthrow him, and they fucking give him the boot out of Norway. And a couple of years goes by, and he's like, all right, well, I'm going to take my kingdom back. So he builds up a little bit of an army, and then his brother Harald goes and builds up a little bit of an army, and they join forces to go and take back the throne of Norway, which they believe belongs to them. And justifiably, King Olaf, he's the king. So he goes, I'm coming to take my kingdom back. And Harold's like, well, I'm going to come with you. That's how we fucking do shit. And that becomes the Battle of Stiklestad in the year 1030. I don't remember if I said this before, but if I mess up any of these names, I'm doing my best here, okay? A lot of them are in a different language or just places I've never heard of, so we're going to try. So they go to the Battle of Stiklestad. It's one of the greatest battles in Norwegian history of all time. It's an insanely massive battle. Olaf's forces are, though more talented and more skilled fighters, they are outnumbered roughly 4-1. There are some stories and sagas that claim like there was a total eclipse during the battle. It's basically perfect for like Viking storytelling. It was really cool. They're outnumbered, more skilled but outnumbered, and eventually, honestly, those numbers just get the best of them. Yeah, they're fighting farmers and shit like that, but I mean, do you think you could go toe to toe with 4 angry farmers? I don't know if I could. I feel like I'd get my ass kicked. So they were hanging in there for a while, and then it fell apart on them. And eventually, Olaf dies. He gets killed because he goes toe to toe with, I really hope I don't mess this up, Porir the Hound. I've also seen or heard it said as like Thorir or stuff like that. I don't know what his name is. I think it's Porir the Hound. Now Porir, this is where a little bit of that bullshit comes in, where you're like, oh, he supposedly wears a magical reindeer skin cloak that makes it pretty much near impossible to hurt him. And he also has a magical spear. Is that true? Probably not, but I don't know. I wasn't around in 1030 AD or 10th AD? Yeah, 1030 AD. But but apparently this guy needed some kind of like Viking storyteller plot armor. I don't know. I don't even know if he pops up in the rest of the story. If he did, I didn't see it, but maybe, I don't know. He's got fucking magical equipment. And so everybody on Olaf's side gets just totally slaughtered, including Olaf, except for his half-brother, 15-year-old brother, Harald. Harald gets wounded, knocked unconscious. He's laying amongst the bodies on the battlefield, right? And so while he's laying in that pile of dead bodies, a man who I believe his name is Robin finds him. Now, Robin fucking gets him together, gets him on his feet, drags him into the woods while Poirier's men search for survivors. And Robin and Harold, they go and they hide in this, they found a woodman's like log cabin house or whatever, and they hide there until Harold heals all the way. And then once Harold is healthy, the woodman's son, this is a few days later, the woodman's son escorts him to Sweden. And this is a fucking hell of a journey. This is when he really goes a little bit more Aragon, like wearing the dark cloak, and they'd never take any roads. They travel just strictly through the woods, with fucking staying out of sight. Out of my, like in Fellowship of the Ring, is very much like, oh, he's traveling in secret with a hidden identity type of thing. So he's traveling through his version of Middle Earth, and then he makes it to Sweden, and from Sweden he heads east. And where is he going when he heads east? He's making his way to Kiev, or Kiev. Apparently people say it different ways. I always thought it was Kiev, and then I heard a historian say it differently one time, and I don't know what to think. I'm not really an expert on the English language, but it's said somehow. And this isn't just like a he went to Kiev type of story. Okay, this getting there was its own full-blown expedition in and of itself. Okay? So while they're traveling to Kiev, they have to switch boats, use canoes. They're going north and south and east, and they're traveling up all these different waterways. They're dragging canoes across land, and not like, oh, we got to go from that side of the harbor to that side of the harbor. They're traveling like dragging these boats like 100 miles through the woods, through the forest, over mountains, and that they have to deal with bandits and Slavic tribes, wolves, shit like that. Hundreds of miles they're dragging these boats across the land just to go from one river to another. Like, if Google Maps was saying like, oh, continue dragging your canoe for the next 100 miles, that's what they were doing. And then eventually Harold reaches Kiev, which is, at the time, I don't know if this maintained true throughout his life, because I don't know how these places scale to each other. But at the time, around 17 years old, this was probably the biggest city he had ever seen. I mean, he comes from Norway. Norway's just it's a lot of like smaller towns and villages where they have huts and shit like that. They're Vikings. He's never seen a place this big before. So he gets to Kiev and he decides that he's going to serve Grand Prince, another tough name, Grand Prince Yaroslav. And he does that for about 2 years. He does that from 17 to 19, roughly. Gets promoted, and eventually he becomes the captain of that guard, right? So he's moving up in the world a little bit. He's getting a little bit of notoriety, a little bit of power. He gets assigned a couple of slave girls to serve him. Like, one of them is, like, hey, fucking brush my hair and fetch me food and drink. And the other one is for Boink City. But apparently Harold's like, yo, fuck this. I'm not worried about girls right now. I'm just worried about getting the throne back. I just want to be the king of Norway, right? So Harold goes and he wants to secure some of these relationships. He needs better relationships so we can have more support so we can go and he can take the throne. And one of the things that he wants to do to get that done, he wants to marry Prince Yaroslav's daughter, Elizabeth. It's something else in whatever language they spoke at the time. And then I've also heard it Elizabetha. I think it's Elizabeth. Yaroslav tells him, this is what's weird about Elizabeth, first of all. How it worked back then, it's a little weird that Harald is like, I want to marry your daughter. Because when Harald had arrived in Kiev at about 17 years old, Elizabeth was 6. And so when he goes, hey, Super Chief, I want to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage, Elizabeth is 9. Now, at the time, that's fairly normal where you wouldn't get married, but you would get betrothed. So at about 9 or 10 years old, you'd get betrothed, which means like intended to be married. And then when you move into like your more like mid-teens, like 13, 14, 15, 16, I think that's when you would actually go and actually do the marriage and everything back then. Weird now, back then, standard operating procedures. Okay, still weird, but that's how it works. So he goes, hey, can I marry your daughter? Can I marry your 9-year-old daughter, Elizabeth, in a few years? Yaroslav's like, yo, dude, I like you, but you are broke as fuck, okay? You're just a guy. Like, you need money, you need accomplishments, you need reputation, you need to have some backing for this. So if you want to do that, okay, cool. You can in the future, but you can't do it now. Come back later once you've earned it, is basically what he says. So that's when Harald goes like, okay, well, for one, the first thing I need is money. So he goes where everyone's going to go, and he goes to Constantinople. Harald leaves for Constantinople because that's his best chance of making money. So what does he do? He joins the Varangian Guard. Now, the Varangian Guard during the Byzantine Empire is basically like the special forces, best of the best soldiers slash bodyguards slash, if you are in the Varangian Guard, you are fucking tough shit. You're one of the best fighters around. Okay, and so Harold joins these guys, and that's when his whole life really gets into like hardcore like video game type of territory where you're like, who the fuck is this guy? This guy's crazy. So when he enters his video game Kratos God of War type section, for about 6 to 7 years, he's fighting fucking everywhere there is to fight. He fights in the Mediterranean. He fights in Sicily, Asia Minor, Jerusalem, Bulgaria. He's fucking scaling walls, storming castles, winning battles, killing dudes. He's fucking kicking ass, and he doesn't give a shit about any names. This guy is slicing and dicing his way across Eastern Europe and doesn't give a fuck. His only concern is making money because Varang, you know what I'm saying? Those guys make like a ton of money, and it's basically guaranteed. So he's kind of like doing mercenary work because they pay him so much, and really the stipulation to get that paycheck is just go to a battle, and if you survive, you fucking get your money. You know, so it's, I wouldn't say it's easy, but like it's pretty straightforward. Like, hey, you live, you get your money. And so this dude's badass and a great fighter, so of course he lives, and he does 6 or 7 years, he makes a fucking ton of bank. The bankroll is heavy. And eventually, he's won enough battles and fought enough wars and cut enough people's heads off that eventually he becomes the leader of the Varangian Guard. And once he became the leader of the Varangian Guard, then he started implementing like different fucking honestly really cool tactics and stuff, I think. Because it's like stuff I would never think about even remotely using nowadays. So like he used like Firebirds, right? And not like the Pontiacs that we had in the 1960s or whatever. I mean, one tactic that was attributed to him was that he taught soldiers how to capture birds, tie burning coals to their feet, and then release the birds so that when the birds fly into the town and they land on rooftops of houses, the entire town catches on fire because that's what medieval warfare was. And I had never heard that before. Apparently, this was something that was attributed to Yaroslav in Kiev. I've also heard it be it's been attributed to a ton of different people. For the sake of our story, we are going to say that Harald came up with this. And if he didn't, you're telling me he spent all that time in Kiev as he could have learned this from then and just brought it with him. That's what good fucking military leaders do. They learn about shit and they take and they go, "Oh, that works. Pff, I heard about this one crazy idea," and they do that because medieval warfare was fucking nuts. So they burned down towns using birds. One time when they were fighting for Sicily, Harold supposedly is trying to capture a city. He was having a hell of a time doing it. He just couldn't do it. So word gets out that Harold has gotten sick and he's died basically. And so some of his soldiers go, "Hey, can we know we've been trying to steal your city. We've been laying siege on you for quite some time now." Unexpectedly, but still, they go to the church and they say, "Would it be okay if we brought in our commander and did a proper funeral in the church with our commander?" And the city agrees. They go, "Yes, you can. You can hold a funeral inside of our church but there's only 12 men allowed in this service, right? And so the 12 men go and they're starting to bring in the coffin, and it turns out that Harald has disguised himself as one of the pallbearers because he was never really dead. So he jumps out, they drop the giant coffin, okay, so that blocks the gate from being able to get closed. So now all of his men can come in, and they finally take the city. Except, as cool as that story is, the one problem is that probably never happened because Harold never actually conquered Sicily. All the sagas and stories and everything just thought it sounded awesome, which that does sound awesome. That's the fucking they Trojan horsed with a dead body, which is cool, I think. And so that probably never happened because I don't think Sicily got captured until like the end of the century. So this was years away. So it couldn't have possibly happened. And we know that based on other historical accounts that are not just stories of people. They're like, okay, this is when it all happens. But despite all that, Harold's reputation fucking explodes. Through the roof. This guy could not be more renowned. He couldn't be more famous. He's promoted to the emperor's personal elite bodyguard by the age of 25 and is arguably one of the most respected warriors in all of Europe. Now, while this is happening, while he's become an elite guard and he's serving the Byzantine Empire in Constantinople, whatever. While he's serving there, there's a whole shit ton of like Game of Thrones type of drama going on that I'm not going to super dive into here because we're really just focusing on Harold. And that could be its own episode of Idiot History all by itself, where it's just like, yo, this fucking shit's crazy. There's betrayal. To sum it up for you, Empress Zoe married an emperor, and then another emperor, and then another emperor, and then I think one more emperor, and one guy's like, yo, fuck this, I'm not doing this shit anymore, and there's all this fighting and kerfuffle. Harold gets caught up with it. He kind of loses favor with that emperor. He gets imprisoned, right? While he's imprisoned, obviously he escapes because he's the fucking man. So he gets imprisoned, escapes the prison, grabs his fucking cash that he's had lying about, and is, yo, I'm going to get my money and I'm going to get the fuck out of here. And that's when he travels back to Kiev. He returns to see the Grand Prince Yaroslav, no longer broke. Dude is rich as hell. He's famous. He's one of the greatest military commanders alive, so he's got that reputation. And he's like, yo, how about your daughter now, huh? How about I marry Elizabeth now? And Yaroslav is like, well, fuck, you checked all the boxes, so now you can marry my daughter. And so Harold marries Elizabeth of Kiev, who at the time is actually 19 at this point. So it's still a bit odd, but no longer creepy. Okay, so check that box. We're good to go. No more creepy shit going on that front. Mission accomplished. Except Harold is still not King of Norway. That's his ultimate goal. Is what he's doing all of this for, is to retake the throne and become the King of Norway. Okay? But he's been gone for 15 years. The battle where his brother Olaf died happened 15 years ago. So while he's been collecting all his European fucking achievements, Norway already has a king. Magnus the Good. Magnus the Good is King of Norway, and he's actually Harold's nephew. It's Olaf's son. So Harold can't exactly walk in and be like, hey, buddy, how's it going? Fucking move over. You know what I mean? Because the way this shit's claimed, because Magnus's pretty legitimate claim to the throne as well. I mean, you are the son of the last king, and that was the only dude around because your fucking uncle wasn't here, so get fucked. So they come up with a deal. Basically, Harald and Magnus, they negotiate. Harald goes, hey, Magnus, here's a shit ton of money that I made while being the greatest soldier alive in Constantinople. Think of it as I'll buy half the kingdom type of arrangement. And Magnus goes, all right, that's a pretty good deal. So they become co-kings, which is actually a really smart political move by both parties because nobody has to die for now. Everyone is cool. Everyone's in agreement. It's like, oh, yeah, shit worked out for us, but it's problem solved for about a year. And then Magnus dies. Magnus the Good dies. And for no real reason, except he probably got sick. He wasn't like betrayed by Harold. He wasn't murdered by anybody. He just got sick and fucking died because that's what happens. In what year are we in at this point? We're in the 1047. That's what happens in 1047, dude. Sometimes people just fucking die, dude. Which means a year ago, Harold was a co-king, and now he's the sole king of Norway. Just out of nowhere, never saw it coming. Bam, you're the king of Norway. There you go. How you like that? Okay? Sometimes history is less dramatic than a TV show. That's just how it is. Magnus died. Whatever. And Harold immediately, because he's not done. Okay, do you understand that about Harold? He's never going to be done. There is no satiating the pull of what he wants in achievement. He'll never be done fighting, be done going to war, none of that shit. So Harold immediately goes, well, I also kind of want to be the king of Denmark because why not? Wouldn't that be fucking cool if I was the king of Denmark? Like, I think that would be pretty sick. So he goes to war with Denmark because Denmark already has a king. Okay? Because of course everyone had kings back then. So Harold spends like another 15 years, 10 or 15 years, trying to conquer Denmark. Just raid, battle, burn, leave, repeat. And neither side is really winning at all until eventually Harold goes like, yo, I'm kind of tired of this shit. This sucks, honestly. Like, we're not making any progress here. I'm trying to be a great king, trying to be a great leader. It's not working. So I'm just fuck Denmark, dude. I don't give a shit about Denmark. I got Norway. I'm good. You know what I mean? I'm getting old. And so now Harold is around 50 years old, which for a Viking warrior is fucking old as shit. You've lived a long time, and he's done nothing but fight the entire time, so he's been around for a fucking hot minute. Most kings would be slowing down by now. Just spent 15 years fighting for Denmark and you gave up, and most kings would be like, oh, fucking blow the whistle. We're done. We've got what we've got. But Harold instead hears that the King of England has died, and there are several people who are making claims to the throne. One of them is Harold Godwinson. Another is William the Conqueror. May be another great choice going forward for an idiot history. And Harold looks at those two guys and is like, well, I think I'm king. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. Why can't I be king of England? And this is kind of what his thought process was on that. This is why Harold thought he had a claim. And it's actually way simpler than it sounds, okay? So years earlier, King Magnus the Good, his nephew, and the Danish king King Harthacnut supposedly made an agreement that if one died without an heir, the other would inherit his kingdoms. And so Harthacnut eventually ruled England. Magnus inherited Denmark after Harthacnut died. And then Harold inherited Magnus's claims. Does that make sense? So Harthacnut died. Magnus had claims to his stuff. And then Magnus died, so Harold went, well, obviously I have claims to his stuff. So, vis-a-vis, by the by, England is mine, which makes a lot of sense. Whether anyone in England agreed is another story, but the way Harold got there is not totally that ludicrous. You know what I mean? It was one giant custody battle, essentially, where everyone claimed they were the next in line and also had an army to back them up, and so Harold decides, I'm going to go invade England. You know what I mean? So it's 1066. Harold's 50 years old, which is ancient for a warrior, right? Most people his age are thinking about retirement. Harold sees England, political chaos, and decides this is the perfect time to invade and step this shit up even further than anyone thought I had ever gone before. Because he just doesn't relax. But he doesn't go alone either, okay? He's not an idiot. So Harold doesn't go alone. He teams up with Tostig Godwinson. Tostig is the brother of the currently new English king, Harald Godwinson. And those two dudes fucking hate each other. So Tostig basically says, hey, Harold, if you're invading England, I would love to help ruin my brother's life, right? Because nothing says family like a full-scale Viking invasion. You know what I mean? So the invasion is going to happen. Harold sails with hundreds of ships. Some estimate around 300 longships. He lands in Northern England. He wins the Battle of Fulford, a decisive Viking victory because that's what he does. And at this point, he's like, yo, everything's fucking working out pretty swell for me. I think this is how shit goes for me, dog. I'm the fucking champ. Harold thinks the campaign is basically over. He's waiting to receive hostages and supplies from the English. So a lot of his men, they take off their armor, they leave it behind. It's hot, battle's over. They just figure, oh, there's no reason to really carry all of this weight. Until Godwinson arrives. King Harald Godwinson, not Hardrada. King Harald Godwinson doesn't surrender. Instead, he marches his army 200 miles in 4 fucking days, which is an incredible distance to obviously. That's fucking far as shit. And our Harald Hardrada has almost no warning. Suddenly it's just bam, the English standing right in front of him. And that's when we move into the Battle of Stamford Bridge. It's one of the most famous battles in English history. So Harald Hardrada has not only fought in the greatest battle in Norwegian history, he's also fought in one of the most famous battles, I should say, in English history. This dude he is Kratos. He's going from the Greek pantheon to the Norse pantheon. He is fucking crossing lands and borders we never thought possible. Okay? According to tradition, this is the bridge story that is according to tradition. One giant Viking holds Stamford Bridge by himself. He kills dozens of English soldiers trying to cross, but nobody can get past him. And eventually, an English soldier floats underneath the bridge in a barrel and stabs the Viking through the floorboards with a spear. Is that exactly what happened? Who knows? You know what I mean? Who knows? But it's one of those stories that's kind of like, it's too good to be like, obviously there was one Viking holding the bridge where they couldn't get past, and obviously they had a creative solution from it. But Harald Hardrada, he's a seasoned warrior. He's 50 years old. It's 1066. He's the King of Norway. He's been a Viking turned mercenary, turned elite bodyguard, turned prisoner who's escaped, and now he's become King of Norway. So he leads from the front. He's always led from the front. And he takes an arrow to the throat and dies on the battlefield. Just like that. There's no last speech. There's no dramatic final duel. And there is no magical ending. Just one arrow from a stray comes out of nowhere, catches him in the neck, and he dies on the battlefield. And Tostig also dies. So the invasion that Hardrada was pushing for to become the King of England totally collapses. Only a fraction of Hardrada's fleet make it home. They arrived when they showed up to fight the English, they had about 300 ships, and on the way back they had about 25 ships. And obviously those numbers, who the fuck knows? But those are the estimated numbers. And it kind of gets crazy after that, because Harold Godwinson defeats Hardrada. He defeats his brother, Tostig, and that's great, except he barely has time to celebrate at all because another invasion is already underway with William the Conqueror. He lands in southern England, and Harold Godwinson, the King of England, now has to march his fucking burnt out, tired, exhausted army all the way back to the other side of England, all the way across the country. Just weeks after Stamford Bridge, they fight at the Battle of Hastings, which is where Harold Godwinson dies, and William wins. William the Conqueror wins. And England is changed forever. So Harold Hardrada died on the battlefield. He failed to conquer England, but by forcing Harold Godwinson to fight one massive battle in the north, he may have unintentionally helped William the Conqueror win England forever. So many historians call Harald Hardrada the last great Viking, not because he was literally the last Viking, but because after Stamford Bridge, the age of giant Viking invasions was essentially over. The Viking Age didn't end with a celebration. It ended with like just one, probably the fucking one of the greatest warriors of all time, taking an arrow to the throat in a field in northern England. And that's how the Viking Age really just came down to and collapsed into nothing. And so that is why history remembers Harald Hardrada as the last great Viking. And that is the episode for today, guys. That was Idiot History on the last great Viking, Harald Hardrada. Honestly, one of the coolest stories that I have come across since starting this series. It's so much so that I was like, Santa Monica's got to make a game about this guy. This is fucking insane. He's a total badass. I mean, I wish we had the time to go more into depth on this stuff, but just like I say every time I do one of these idiot histories. But he's a totally awesome dude. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for checking it out. Please like, share, subscribe, whatever. Do your thing. I know usually we do a lot more sports stuff on here, but once a month I like to do an idiot history because I like fucking history too. This shit's cool. I would have known about this guy if I didn't look into it because of this show. And anyway, guys, go follow Pat on the Back. Go check out Pat on the Back 9. Pat on the Back 9 this coming Sunday. We release that every Sunday at 7 p.m. This coming week, we are not going to have an episode coming out. Just scheduling conflicts created a situation where that was no longer the case. So, no Pat on the Back 9 this week, but go check out Pat on the Back. Go check out Rudy Tuesday if you guys are interested in a little bit of ensemble comedy. That's a great show. Comes out every Tuesday at 7. We come out over here every Friday at 7. Thank you guys so much. If I didn't say it earlier, I am your host, Pat O'Connor. Thank you guys so much. Hope you enjoyed the show.